Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
This is a Danger Entertainment podcast. DangerEntertainment.net. Danger Entertainment Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Evan.
Hey, Jason Underwood.
And we hope you're enjoying the shows on the Danger Entertainment Network, now including the Bearded Ones comedy podcast.
Yeah, we're super thrilled to be a part of this awesome lineup, guys. And what we do here on our show is, look, we are just trying to make you guys laugh through all kinds of different avenues.
Hear me out here.
Yeah.
Hear me out.
Please.
What we are is we're two geeky white dudes talking and trying to be funny.
Yeah, not try to blow in your mind here with with something brand new, but
You never heard anything like this. We talk about Star Wars. We talk about superheroes.
Talking about Marvel movies, man. Look, we're cutting some we're breaking some damn boundaries over here.
We are breaking new ground.
Yeah.
But for real, what we do is we play invented games.
Yeah, and we try to spin everything into a brand new fun game that we've made up. We filter it all through that sensibility, and
we're both improvisers, so a lot of what we talk about ends up in sort of a scene that we have a lot of fun with. We talk about our lives, pop culture, and movies. We talk about a little bit of everything. So if that's what you like, check us out, Bearded Ones Comedy Podcast on the Danger Entertainment Network.
They look like Vikings.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out and try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of The Crazy Life. I'm Brian. Joining me is Heno.
Howdy.
And as you can tell, no Jen leading the show off this week. She's busy getting everything ready for Thanksgiving and whatnot with her family showing up and everything. So she should
must
be
just
back.
losing it.
Yeah, probably.
Just put yourself in that situation.
Mm.
You know, everyone's showing up at your house.
Mm.
The pressures that you already put on yourself.
Yeah. I've never
I
been
can talk about this because I know she doesn't listen.
Right. That's true. Yeah. I've never been one to really do that. Like, if people are coming over, I'm more of the attitude of, if you have a problem with the way my house is, that's on you.
Oh, that's same here. Well, you know what? Actually, I take that back.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to, like, I wouldn't just, I'd clean a little bit, but I mean, I'm not going to, like, scrub the baseboards.
Yeah, but I'm more concerned about the reputation that I leave about Sharon.
That's fair. Yeah.
Right. So like, cause it would be one of those things where if I had somebody over and then later in the day, Sharon walks in the house and goes, "You let people in and it looked like this."
Yep.
and neither one of us have very high standards. So
yeah.
Right. So I at least think about that and say, okay, what would Sharon be okay with then? Cause it does reflect on her a little bit too, but
yeah. I come from
I'm
like
with you. I don't care.
Yeah, I remember when I was little. One time, my my one uncle and my aunt and uncle came over, and my uncle was really anal about his house being like immaculate kind of a thing, and he was griping to my mom about dishes, and she just walks over and grabs a dish rag and was like, "Have at it," and that's kind of it's like, hey, if you just show up at my house and it's in disarray. It is a little different. Like if you got family coming over, maybe you make your bed that day and move your laundry and take your sex toys into the other room. No, I'm kidding. But
I still the holiday thing. I can see how that would be really nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Now, my example of it is my sister and my brother-in-law and what they do. But for some reason, they make it seem easy. But I think that's just because Mark has been cooking this meal for decades, basically, at this point with his buddy. Now, his buddy Michael's not around anymore. But Mark's done it for so long, he has confidence in it. And I know that helps. And then it comes down to like, okay, let's tidy up the house. But my sister doesn't kill herself over it.
I honestly, I walk into people's houses all the time, and then they'll do the, sorry about the mess or whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm not here to see your possessions, and
I'm not here. And I seriously, anyone that walks into a house and starts judging someone based on it.
Yeah.
I don't want to know you. I really don't.
The only thing I think I would ever, would bother me is if you walked into someone's house and they had I don't know how to word it. If they had animal droppings or something just laying around, stuff like that, then it's like
if the sink looks like a fraternity.
Yeah. But dishes in the sink, I don't care.
Some dishes I don't care. But if it's literally piled up because you just haven't done them in a week.
Yeah.
And there's old food or an old pizza somewhere. All right, I take that back. Hillary, I was not talking about your old pizza that was sitting in the oven when I visited you recently.
He totally was. Totally was.
But that just jumped to my head. I want to say thank you to Hillary because she brought in a new listener to the Crazy Life.
Awesome.
Who I don't know their name because it was their online handle.
Oh, okay, right.
But I wanted to say welcome and thank you for joining us.
Yes, I would like to echo those.
And I hope you hear something that you can relate to.
Right. Good. Excellent.
And I wasn't talking about that pizza, Hillary.
It totally was.
Even though it had been sitting there for a day. But I'm not talking about that one.
I can't even knock that because I think we all do that sometime where
you bring
forget to put away something you made for dinner or whatever, and the next morning you're like, oh.
Yeah, that's what it was like. Yeah. Luckily, we just brought back another pizza that was delicious.
Yeah, that's all that mattered at that point. It's not about yesterday's pizza. That's in the past. We're looking forward on this show.
there's a serious metaphor in there somewhere.
We're living in the now, and
Don't
now.
worry about yesterday's pizza.
Right.
Like I've said, I've ended the show with live your omelet.
Yeah.
Don't worry about yesterday's pizza.
Yep, that's right.
And live your omelet.
Yep. Like I said, we're all about the now, and right now we got, pizza in front of us. That's all that matters. So, yeah.
It was kind of funny because we were she had tidied up her apartment. And I said, "Oh, did you tidy up for the cable guy?" She's like, "I don't care about the cable guy. I knew you were going to visit." I was like, "Well, that's good to know."
But there are people who do that, like.
No, there are.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking it. It's just stating it that there are people who, no matter who it is, if they think someone's coming over, they will, straighten the house completely or go, because that's whatever it is, whether it's how they were brought up or their situation, or they just feel a need to, whatever it is, that's fine. I'm just not one of those people. Like when I go to somebody's house, I'm going to see them. I'm not. Or even if I get in someone's car, as long as I don't have to like wade through, a fast food place's dumpster basically, or cans all over the place, like if you keep them in the back seat, I don't care, Yeah.
I'm poking a little fun at Jen, but the reality is I understand people have standards, and they have, like you said, it's something that either you were brought up that way, it was the way your parents were, and so you feel the same way, whatever it is. And I also have a lot of sympathy for the fact that I know how difficult it can be for her. It's a lot of pressure. Then throw in the recent family drama and other stuff that she shared with us. It's this year's a little different, I think.
Well, and like especially being a people pleaser, because when you're a people pleaser, you that's the end goal there is you want everyone to be happy, have a good time. You don't want anyone to be uncomfortable, all that kind of stuff. And it's
you do
tough.
think everyone's judging you based on how your house looks.
Yeah. Even
and
though
I'm not
most
saying
people
that's right or wrong.
aren't.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah. I think, honestly, a lot of people, there are people who will. I mean, let's not pretend there aren't, but, I think most people, it's like, like I was saying before, it's like most of it's like, no, here, we're here for, again, if your house seemed dirty, meaning not messy, but dirty, like filth, and you're going there to eat, then people might be like, because, they're like, well, if this isn't clean, how do I know?
Yeah, well, that's true.
But even then, we talk about the distorted thinking and how, you're mind reading at that point. You're projecting what you think they are thinking. And maybe they are, maybe they're not. And honestly, I've always been one of those that it's like I'll stand there and however, and just kind of be like, like, I dare you to say something, because it's like, it's whatever. But it is really stressful for her. I've been through, that with her, and, to where, it agitates me because I'm so not that way, but, but, whatever. I understand it. Like you said, I totally get it, and look, nobody wants anyone to come into their house and think you live in like a dumpster, like you want people to feel that you're capable of taking care of a house or an apartment or whatever.
Yeah. You said one thing on Salty Language this week about your depression.
Yeah. And
allowing yourself to go through whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And it really rang so true to me as far as a topic that we talk about a lot is it's not so much about dealing with the depression. It's about allowing yourself the space to have it, and not fight it, that thing. And it really, that's why I think, like, for Jen, she goes, okay, I know what this week is like.
Yep.
I'm going to take care of myself. Mm-hmm. I'm going to realize that, doing a podcast right now is not a priority.
Yeah.
Totally get it. That's accepting it and loving yourself through it. Mm-hmm. Is how I look at it. And
yeah, exactly.
I think that's kind of like what you were kind of saying. And I was like, wow, that's such a great topic.
Yeah. Well, I guess really quick to give full context, it's like I was telling on that show, on Salty Language, I was going to get into it here too, of course, but how I had a few days where I had to get up early and it messed my sleeping schedule up, and it really was really throwing me, and I don't know, to where I was sleeping full on, from like, I'd go to bed at like, 2 in the afternoon basically, and sleep until midnight or so, and then get up and whatever. And that's an even more different schedule than I usually have, because usually, like I said on there, I would have overlap with somebody who has air quote normal hours, whereas this way I wasn't. And I wasn't sure really what was causing it. Like I said, I don't know if it was depression, and honestly, I think that's had something to do with it. Because again, this time of year here, it's gray every day. Even today, right? It was 54 degrees here today, or 50 something like that. It was, pretty nice day, but it was just gray and drab. There was no sun. It was just, well, there was for a little bit. I take that back. But again, we've had basically just overcast. And we have that here pretty much most of the winter. Like until March, it'll be like that. And, so I think that has something to do with it. Plus, not sleeping, and it's just a whole mess of things. But like you were saying, I've gotten to a point to where now it's like, okay, this may be depression. I'm just going to ride it out. Much like, you get the flu or a cold, and at some point you just go, okay, I'm sick. Like, I need to just lay around and take care of myself. Like, I can't keep doing everything because I just don't have the energy or whatever. And it's the same idea, as you get to a point to where basically you're just like, okay, this is depression. I need to just be kind to myself and ride it out. Now, again, there is always you have to recognize when you're able to start doing something, and make sure you do when you can. Like when that window opens back up, you have to kick yourself in the butt and get after it. If you can, and I made sure that I did that, because like I said on Salty Language, otherwise a couple 3 days turns into a week. And, but I quit beating myself up for not doing anything, and it makes a world of difference. Because like I said, most days I'm beating myself up for not getting enough done, or a variety of reasons that I cover in therapy, Yeah. So to get to a point where I can kind of just, like I said, be kind enough to myself to go, doing this or doing that is not in my best interest right now. Like you essentially go into a core survival kind of a thing. Like, is it eating? Is it sleeping? Is it, like those kind of things? And if it isn't, then it might be too much for today. And, and like you said, with Jen, doing that, it's good that she recognizes it and isn't trying to overfill her plate, because it's already full enough, and
yeah,
and
it's being honest with how you're able to. I think that's really where it comes down to. It's about how you handle.
Yes. And really quick one, and she didn't make any excuses about it, like to us.
Nope.
She didn't, and she could have. She could have just been like, hey guys, I'm really tired. And we would have been like, yeah, cool, whatever, and moved on. But she didn't feel a need to do that. She was honest with us and said, hey, this is where I'm at. And we were both, we understand.
Yeah.
And there it is. So,
and that's why I think
I'm glad
that the how is so important, because that's what sticks later.
Yeah.
Right. We're always going to be dealing with whatever we're in recovery for. We're always going to be dealing with it in some way. Mm-hmm. There's no finish line.
Right.
So then it comes down to, how are you dealing with it? Because how you deal with it is how you feel afterwards. And that is the opportunity to have more growth, is feeling good about how you handled it.
Yeah. Being
honest, not making excuses. If you do feel like just losing your mind and tearing someone's face off, well, do it with some grace and dignity, so that you don't feel like such a jerk afterwards.
Right.
But that kind of thing is like, if you can, it's not about what's triggering you. It's about how you handle it. Really is what gives you that opportunity to grow from it and have a better tomorrow. That's why one day at a time works for more than just drug and alcoholism.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, totally. Mm.
It's about how can I live today to set myself up best for tomorrow morning.
Yep.
When I wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, and I can go, okay, yeah, yes, yesterday was a rough day, but I did it the best I could, and I feel good about it.
Well, it's like that one time we talked a long time ago with the whole, even the worst day of your life only lasts 24 hours, like that kind of a thing. And like you said, you can look in the mirror and be like, man, yesterday was rough. And it's like, you know what? It's not yesterday anymore. It's today. Yeah. And there we go. And I know it sounds like a bunch of just garbage, but like it really does when you're dealing with a lot of the stuff that we deal with, it's amazing how much that stuff can help. Just shrinking that window down from, instead of always trying to big picture everything. It's like, you know what? Big picture is taking in a lot. It's like if you're going to do a painting, you don't start everywhere. Like you don't just paint all over you start in one spot and you work your way across, or, a different area at a time as you're doing your stuff, because otherwise it's overwhelming to really focus on the whole thing, and, this, just like you said, it makes it easier to deal with today. And then it also, like you said, sets you up for tomorrow, to where you go, okay, you know what? Like you said, yesterday was rough, but now today I'm going to get up, I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to make sure I eat whatever, take my medicines, whatever it is, a person needs to do, and just try to do better.
Yeah. Even if it's just not beating yourself up.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a huge step for people who do that.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's to sit there and say, okay, I didn't do anything today, but I didn't make anybody mad. Granted, I didn't interact with a single human being, which is probably a safe thing.
Right. Yeah.
I was a public service yesterday because I avoided public.
Right.
And I also didn't beat myself up for doing it.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge.
Because that's usually where my brain would go is in the past when I've had a couple of days like this I can actually give you exactly what my brain normally would do this time of year. Normally I would be, because I've mentioned, I've been trying to list some stuff on eBay to sell. Well, Black Friday's coming up, and usually, much like retail shopping, eBay picks up post Thanksgiving. So you want to try to get whatever you're wanting to sell, you want it on, so that when I start hitting eBay looking for things, you have your whatever on. Well, I haven't hit the goals that I had for myself because, I took 3 days off basically, and in the past, I'd really be killing myself. Well, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. That's bad wording. I'd be really beating myself up over that. Because it's, you quit, whether you're failing, you're being a loser, the blah 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 blah, all that kind of negative speak would just be cycling in my head, and I'm just not doing that. I'm just not letting that happen this time, because I did what I needed to do. I needed to just basically not exist for a few days. That's what my body needed, and I gave it to it, and that's the end of it. Whereas today's a different day. I tried to get a little bit of it done today, and I'm not going to catch up because, I can't, basically. You know, and I understand that. So I'm just going to do the best I can and be happy with it. And in the end, if I don't hit the goals I had, then, well, oh well. I mean, I can't. What can you do at that point? You've tried your best and whatever. So just not beating myself up, though, like you said, it makes such a difference, because otherwise I would have spent 3 days in bed beating myself up during the time I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'd come out of that, and instead of going, okay, fresh start, launch from this point, I would be beating myself up for the previous 3 days. So it would turn into 6 days of beating myself up instead of 3, or like now, there was a little bit of it, but it was pretty minimal, to where it was contained in basically the first day. So,
and not to mention just the emotional hangover that goes with it all.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a but again, that's a lot of work. You know, that's come a long way. Like this week, I was getting into this too. You know, I went and talked with my new therapist, and which went really well and stuff, and different stuff I said to her at one point. You know, she made a comment about how I communicated how I felt really well, and I was like, well, you know, I had a lot of practice and a lot of time, you know, working on this, thinking about this, you know, so I'm very familiar with these things that bother me. And, you know, which she was like, okay, you know, good. 'Cause now she knows what she's working with, essentially, you know, like I mentioned on Salty Language, she doesn't have to like pull stuff out of me. I'm very forthcoming, you know, like, here it is. This is my life. This is me. Please help me. That's basically what I'm doing. That's why I'm there, you know, is, hey, look, I'm a mess in this area and this area. I need some help. I've realized I can't do this on my own, you know, like it isn't going to happen. So, you know, it was, you know, a really nice thing. I felt super comfortable, and I go back in a few weeks. So because I thought it would be a really good idea to go again, you know, during the holiday season, basically, at least get one more in there before the end of the year kind of a thing, so that, you know, just that last kind of tune up to get through what can be stressful, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a big thing. I was really happy and proud of myself that I didn't end up having my former therapist bridge the gap. She talked to her separately, but I didn't have her sit in on things. I actually was thinking about it, and I was like, I actually feel like that would be more pressure. Because
I think so.
You know, like having two therapists in the room with you. Yeah. Even though I'm, you know, very familiar with the one, we have a working relationship, you know, situation, but
yeah, but you just feel you just feel it.
Yeah.
That there's this other
right
person in there, and what are they going to say? And I don't know. I think that'd be. It's already bad enough you're going into a situation with somebody new.
Yeah. But I decided that this was one of those areas where I pick and choose my spots to try to push myself, you know, and this was one where I'm like, this is going to be uncomfortable because it's new, you know, and the anxiety part of me is going to, you know, have its way for a little bit. And it did, you know, I was pretty anxious going in there and stuff, but just as soon as I started talking to her, it felt like talking with somebody, you know, I was very comfortable very fast, and that immediately the anxiety went away. I just started opening up, and that's, you can't ask for much better for that situation, you know, so, you know, and I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I didn't try to use, my previous therapist as like a crutch or a, you know, a shield is maybe a better way of looking at it, like a you know, toward like, oh, this is new, I'm going to protect myself from, I was just like, I'm just going to go in and see what happens, because, you know, deep down I know, like, what's the worst that's going to happen there? We don't get along? Okay. Then I go to the front desk and I go, hey, I need to see someone else. That didn't work out.
Someone else, that's it, yeah.
You know? Or I call my previous therapist and go, hey, I didn't really gel with her. Do you have a different recommendation? You know, like, the worst case scenario is nothing terrible. So it's like there really is no reason to have fear going into this, even though I did, admittedly, you know. Yeah.
Like, it really comes down to the thing that my therapist told me about before I went to my first meeting. It's like, what's the worst thing that happens? Someone annoys you?
Right. I mean, really and truly, the worst thing that could happen is you go in and the person's dismissive of, you know, your situation or something that you have a concern about, but that wasn't the case at all. And I didn't expect that, because most people are more humane than that do that job. At least the ones I've encountered, I should say. I'm sure some people have some bad stories. I've heard some bad stories out there, but I personally, you know, have been lucky enough to not encounter that. So, yeah. So that's basically been my week. So, so how about you? What have you been up to?
I had a interesting epiphany about the loss I've had over the last couple of months. It was sometime in the middle of the week. And I'd had some, like, my bandmates reach out to me and just to see how I was doing and have some nice, kind words. And I thought, and I've just been saying thank you, and just like that. But I was like, oh, wow, you know what? For most, and men in particular, if you lose your father and one of your best friends who happens to also be a mentor in the span of 2 months, it might be kind of heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, but it's not for me.
Right.
But I acknowledged the fact that for most people it would be. And I brought that up to Sharon one night after work, and she's like, I'm glad you said that, because here's the funny thing. The night that the day that we found out, I had projects going on. I dove into them and going through my process in my mind, as far as like a grieving process, going through those certain steps and just putting thoughts together. And Sharon was worried about me, and she actually, because she wanted to go down to Boise for the night, and she'd asked her, you'd be okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Go have a good time. And she was worried, and about halfway down, I guess she stopped and she sent a message to Neil. She's like, can you call him? And just see if he's doing okay, because Neil called me out of the blue. I was like,
okay.
whoa, that's kind of,
Yeah.
And it was great. I just happened to be going on the grocery store at that moment to do my shopping for the week, and so we talked, and it was perfect. It was great, and so I found out that she had actually reached out to him, which I think is awesome.
Yep.
And super appreciate. But she also said, I've never seen you cry out of grief.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you've seen me cry before. She's like, yeah, but it's usually when you're telling your story of recovery and it's from a standpoint of gratitude.
Oh, okay.
Or how people have helped me. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you have seen me cry about with regard to Jax, because, that's the closest other family I have. And if something's, hurting him or bothering him, it hurts me. And she said, yeah. But she really she didn't know if she should be worried about me.
That's fair. Cause
Because those are two significant things. And it came back to the same thing that I've shared about with both events, is that the person that I knew had already been gone from me and distant from me for a while before.
You'd already kind of said your goodbyes to
in certain
ways. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There was also acceptance. There was acceptance of that things, and there was a period of time. So it's not like this was sudden.
Yeah.
And there was a major difference. There really isn't much of a difference, because there was also so much distance.
Right.
Already. And it was good to realize that, because it did allow me to, I do need to be careful and make sure that I am allowing myself to grieve if I feel the need.
Yeah.
And there was one moment where, as far as Eric goes, where I had I felt really sad, and it was like, okay, feel that.
Yeah.
Feel this right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause really, like I've told you before, I've mentioned it before. It's not like it's a secret, but I've mentioned that, I really wish after my dad died, I would have went into grief counseling, because I didn't know how to process it, because I had lost people before. I'd lost a really good friend, other family members and whatnot, but the loss of a parent's a different loss, than most other losses to some people, especially if you're, really close to someone. Or again, I spent the last year of my dad's life right there taking care, so it was such an immediate pull there that I didn't really let myself, deal with. Plus, it was laid on a bed of me beating myself up over us losing our comic shop. Or not losing, but having to close it, feeling like a failure and everything there. And then that happens. Like you were saying with yours, there was more distance there. I mean, we closed. Then I found out my dad had terminal cancer within a matter of months. So those things compounded. But it wasn't for another year that I lost him. But it was still, I didn't know how to deal with that stuff, because I'd never really had to deal with those kind of life, that big of a punch in the face, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you recognize that and gave yourself the space and time you needed there, because it's really important to just let yourself grieve when you need to. We've said before, is to let yourself have whatever time you need to grieve. Just try to make sure that it's not like an obsession. I know with you it's not, but I'm just for the general knowledge, make sure you're not obsessing over something either. But definitely give yourself the time and space to grieve, And that's awesome that Sharon was that in tune with the situation to where she was like, hey, I'm going to make sure he's okay. And for some people, this was something Tony and I went through, which was there's times where like him and I would not talk about something, but the way we dealt with something was bro time, basically.
Yeah.
We just needed to be around each other and just BS and laugh, because that's what we do in those scenarios. And sometimes that's exactly what we need to basically, it's like you're not saying it, but it's an unspoken like, hey man, I'm hurting. And the other's like, yeah, I know. Let's laugh. Like, let's try not to, and it isn't really trying to avoid it. It's just sometimes you just, like I said, sometimes that bro time is just what you need to make sure you're not.
It's a break.
A break. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
It's a moment to step away from a little while. Because for me, stepping away from those situations also allows you to get perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I needed, like, that was the one other thing that I did is I a week ago when I found out about Eric, I was supposed to talk to Hart in Black Wolf, the one band I was playing in, and say, I'm going to focus on Doghouse right now. And I needed to have that conversation. Well, I was going to do that on that Saturday, and after I found out, I was like, there's no way I am not reaching out and having a conversation about it. And so I did it via text. I was like, hey, because at that moment, I had a tremendous amount of perspective.
Yeah.
Like what was really important to me right now and what wasn't.
Right.
And I don't care. At that moment, I could care less what you thought about me texting you.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
Yeah.
And it's the truth. But I did tell myself that I will call him and talk to him. So I called him and left him a message. I wasn't able to talk to him on the phone, and we haven't talked yet, but we will.
Mm-hmm.
And that was important to me that I come back around to that. But this whole thing has really helped my perspective on the decisions that I want to make, that I want to put more of my energy into the one band where, we get together, and this was, I brought it up in the interview that we did for Ion Sun Valley, but I didn't quite make the point I wanted to make, which was that it's really a miracle that we've got these guys that get together, and two of them are business owners. And they're not just any business owners. One's a doctor and the other's a dentist.
Yeah.
And so they literally have human lives in their hands. And,
really quick, sorry not to break this kind of whatever. I just, before I forget, I want to mention this to you. Watching the video, I knew one was a doctor and one was a dentist. And I was like, before they showed the things at the bottom, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to figure it out. And then I was going to ask you if I was right. Nailed the dentist, totally whiffed on the doctor. So
did you?
Yeah, I did not expect.
So funny.
Yeah. So
yeah, it was wild. We never got to I think she wanted to bring that up in the interview, is to have them talk about those things.
Yeah.
And this was that opportunity, and it just didn't happen. But this was the point I wanted to make, was that we get together, and whatever type A personality that you're needed to run a business, which you need to have one.
Yeah.
And to manage clients and to manage patients and employees and Brian's got a large office. Tom, not so much, a little smaller. But when we get together, it's an even playing field.
Yeah, I get what you were saying, like, because you were trying to say that in there, and I think who's I can't remember, the one with the long hair.
That's Tom.
Tom, he kind of made that point a little bit in there. I think he was trying to kind of say the same thing in that you guys really were like, no matter what your musical tastes were, no matter what it was, when you guys walk into there, it's like, hey, listen to this. And then it's like, oh, wow. And then, like, you told me that separately about listening to something like, oh, cool, I'm going to go learn this. You said it in the interview, I think, where you were like, said something, and then you were like, the next thing you know, we're jamming a Metallica song and, whatever. And it's like that. that's such a cool vibe, and I've heard so many people I've known that have been in bands not have that vibe with their band.
Exactly.
To where it's like one person or two people are very James Hetfield and Lars, to where it's like, no, you're not doing that. You know, I recently read something about Kirk Hammett where he was like, yeah, a lot of my riffs get turned down. And I'm like, wow. You know, like the idea that it's like you're supposed to be, you know, but you're not. Everyone knows in that band it's those two and then anyone else. But
yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you.
I mean, it's worked for him clearly.
Exactly, that's the point.
Yeah.
And I've played in bands with that, like where there's one person that is the kind of the focus.
Yeah.
And everyone else is supporting that. Fine, works great. It's actually very easy because you know where you stand and what you're doing.
Yeah, right.
But the reason I'm bringing that up and a couple of these things is because our topic tonight was going to be gratitude because Thanksgiving. And I just want to say how grateful I am to have this place that I can go once a week where there's no judgment. There's nothing, it has nothing to do, you know, if anything, everyone's looking out for me in my interest, say, hey, how are you doing? You know, wow, that was really heavy. And we talk about it. And even though we're there to play music, it's like the music can wait for a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. When I was there with Tom one night alone, and yeah, you could have the experience where you have bro time, or you could have the experience where your bandmate sings you a song that was relevant. To and it's just like, wow, that feels amazing. And we're not, you know, I talk to you pretty much every week and for hours at a time.
Yeah.
I don't get to do that with my bandmates.
Yeah.
They have busy lives. They have families, this kind of.
Right.
So
when you're together, it's about playing the music, you know, practicing or working on something new or whatever it is you're doing. Yeah. That. And realistically, that fits into like the bro time concept. And I just said bro time because the reference I was making was me and Tony, but whatever, friend time,
makes sense.
You know.
But I feel more than just, even though we don't have that type of friendship, the connection there through music is so significant, and it doesn't ignore that we have personal lives, personal feelings, relationships.
Yeah.
None of those are ignored. They're part of who we are as musicians and as a band. You have to be. To ignore the fact that you have families and other interests would just be silly. You'd be beating your head against the wall every single time going, why can't we rehearse more?
Yeah.
You have to accept it. It has to be part of the whole thing. And it makes me so grateful that everyone seems to be on the same page in this regard. And I'm so grateful for this week that I could talk to my wife about loss.
Yeah.
Because that's not something that you talk about on dates. Like when you're entertaining.
It's not generally recommended anyway. Yeah.
Hey, so why don't you let's play out the scenario. If I come home one day to tell you that my dad died, you know, how are you going to handle it?
Right.
And now a lot of it is because – so here's an interesting thing. What was very important for Sharon was the fact that my parents were still together.
Yeah.
But her parents had passed, but they were still together.
Yeah.
She did not grow up in a divorced family. Parents stayed married. She had she has a brother and a sister. I have a sister. There's a lot of similarity there. So when she's already experienced the loss of her mother and her father.
Yeah.
She's going to be very sympathetic to what I might be going through. And again, super blessed to be able to have this conversation with her. And the fact that no matter what's going on in our little selfish lives, which is the reason we are together, is because we are selfish. And we found that we can do that together and not push each other away.
Right.
But that we have these moments of communication that is why we're married.
Yeah.
Is we get to talk about this stuff and we get to check in and connect. Are you doing okay? Because what we're doing is we're supporting each other's individual lives as a couple. It's truly what we are.
Well, you know, and something that I really appreciate about the situation too is that I hope I'm not like talking out of class here, but or whatever it is, talking out of school, whatever the hell the word damn thing is. But you know, it's like you guys, you know, like you have a background where you were not always honest with yourself.
Yep.
And Sharon knows that, and she's very much in tune with that. And I love the fact that whether it was her intention or not, she was making sure you were being honest with yourself as well as with her.
Yep.
And that is, again, you know, those are the kind of things where when you have somebody in your life that does that, you're like, pick the right one. You know, like I got a good one, kind of no matter what it is, a friend, a mate, you know, whatever, you know, it's like, this is a good person to have in my life, you know, because they're holding you accountable, and not in any sort of a, like, you know, mean or nasty way, but it's just like, are you sure about that? Like, you know, have you given yourself that time to grieve? And, you know, and sometimes, like you said, you take that step back and go, you know, maybe I haven't, or whatever. So, and then for your bandmates too, that's awesome that they, you know, talk to you about that and stuff too, because, you know, I mean, for various reasons, I mean, heck, you know, I mean, you're all creative people. Sometimes, you know, pain channels to creativity, you know, so there's that as well, that sometimes it might be like, hey, let's do this a little bit, or, you know, or if you walked in and you were just like, hey, I got this new song and it's real, like, kind of heavy, you know, then now that they might understand it. Whereas if you guys didn't talk about that, you know, you walk in with that and you'd be like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah,
you know?
Where's this coming from? Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And we had a great experience last week too, where Tom's got some new ideas, and he wrote them out on the dry erase board, just the chords. He's like, hey, do you mind if we try some of this stuff?
Mm.
And everyone was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
There was no grumbles. There was nothing. It's like, let's jump into this.
Man.
Let's nail it.
It's so great.
It really is. The collaboration, art is amazing as it is, but collaborating on art, and I am literally the person that in college it was like, hey, let's all split off into groups and work together.
Yeah, that's
you know,
I'm
still the last thing I wanted to do.
Totally.
And
Same.
yet there's where this beauty is, and we do it here. Same thing. If you're feeling what I'm slinging ain't quite right, you're going to call me on it.
Yeah.
And that's because we do this every week, and we do this as a collaboration.
Right. And we care. And that's, you know, that's what it's so nice to know when people do that to you, that it's not because they feel like you're being a jerk or lying. It's as much as it's like, are you okay? Is this really, you know, is this what you're meaning to put out there, kind of a thing? But yeah, going back to the art, I'm the same way in high school. Every time they were like, okay, split off. And I'm like, man, because, you know, a lot of times it's like, I ended up being the kid who was generally the one doing 80% of the work, or, you know, like, kind of a thing. And when I got into college, I was like, and I'm thinking, cool, you know, because they always talk about how, like, your accountability when you're in college, how mommy and daddy aren't there for you, and the teachers aren't going to hold your hands and all this. And I'm like, good, let's go. This is what I want. And like the first art class I'm in, you know, well, once I get past the, you know, the foundation stuff, you know, here's how to shade and all this stuff. Like when you get into the graphic design ones, and now it's like, okay, split, you know, you're a team, and it's like, oh man, you know, but you realize that it's like, this is how it's going to be in the workplace. You're going to have to work with people. And then when you do, like you're saying, you sit down, you got a dry erase board or whatever, because in our classrooms they had dry erase boards. So, you know, and people are just like, okay, brainstorm. We're just going to throw everything up here, and then we'll go from there. And you're just throwing ideas out. And as you're doing it, some people will be like, ooh, I like this, but let's do, you know, and you're right there. You're in that moment of creativity, and you feel validated because other people like your ideas and at least hear them. Even if it's not what you go with in the end, at least they heard you, you know, because there's nothing worse than sitting in a room like that and going, hey, how about we try this? And everyone just goes, yeah, no. You know, you're just like, wow, why am I here? You know, like.
Exactly. Yep.
And don't get me wrong, sometimes there's bad ideas, you know.
There are, yeah. But it's different when people just dismiss you, not because of the idea, but because of you feel like it's who you are, and it's true, because that does happen.
Yeah.
Nothing worse than that.
Man, I love that process. And in fact, that may be one of the things I miss most about being in school, like for art or whatever, is that group collaboration with people. Because so many of the classes I was in, like, even if we weren't in groups, we'd go over to like a cafe and we'd just be sitting there just, having lunch or whatever, and we'd be talking about whatever project the class had at the time, and 2 or 3 of us will be talking, and the next thing you know, it'll be like, hey, have you thought about this kind of a thing? And no one's like being insulted because no one's telling you your idea is bad. They're just like, hey, I'm also a creative person, and this popped in my head. What do you think? And there's so many times where you're like, oh, I hadn't considered that. That's a great, and you work with it. So, it was that there's just something about that nothing else scratches that itch. Like you have to be in a creative situation to get that feeling. Especially like I said, especially when you're validated, when other people are like, yeah, and everyone's kind of like in the moment, like, let's do this, let's be successful, everyone's got valid opinions here, even if in the end we don't listen to most of them, because that's the creative process.
And that's also, I think, when it comes to like mental health, that's also what you're doing with your therapist.
Yeah.
You're working with somebody just like you do with your doctor.
That's funny you say that. Maybe that's why I like it so much.
Yeah, because it's a collaborative
Maybe
effort.
it's scratching that itch a little bit for me.
Yeah. Because there's creativity in it, in that somebody's helping you shape your perspective and your viewpoint on you.
Right.
And that's huge, because most of the distorted thinking is our thinking. It's in our neighborhood, in our head. Huh. And this person is knocking on the door saying, hey, can I come in and help you rearrange the furniture a little bit?
Yeah.
And moving, and so your therapist helps you move the couch to the other side of the room, and you're like, oh, whoa, that looks great.
Yeah. Or,
wow, it really opens
let's try that again.
Here.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And yet you feel like you're part of the process and being creative, because you are. You're
also walking into it with the brainstorming concept of there are no bad ideas in here, as far as like of ways to improve, essentially. Well,
hopefully we aren't walking in with that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm not.
You aren't. For sure.
You're right, though.
And that's why you can't walk in with that idea that I know the way everything is, because we there's a reason we have, boy, are we segueing here, but there's a reason we have an imagination. And we talked about that on one of our podcasts. We have an imagination so we stay alive.
Yeah.
When you're in the middle of the woods and you hear branches creaking and a loud snap and a growl, and your brain goes, giant bear, that's there to get you out of the forest and alive. We have an imagination for a reason. It's an evolutionary thing.
Right.
But that imagination also creates scenarios in our heads about ourselves and the other people around us.
Yeah.
And so what a therapist is doing is helping us reimagine things.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That's why we talk about reframing, because even though, and a lot of these little phrases and these little messages that we repeat over and over again that we like to say, boy, that's really hokey, but it's become something that's true to us because we've reframed and we've discovered that it actually worked to reframe this.
Right.
And I'm happier with it reframed. That's why I love to talk about it. It's like, sobriety for me was like a lot like brainwashing, because my brain needed a good washing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That some people might say that what you do is brainwashing. Yep, it is. It is brainwashing, and I needed it.
Yeah.
I needed to it's no different than a cult where you're being programmed or reprogrammed. That's what these things are. It's just a matter of does this feel true to your heart? Does it make you feel happy?
Yeah.
And this weekend I got to go hang out with people I'd never met before. Went to a party.
Nice.
Loved doing it. Grateful that I am still enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
it's not like you're going to walk into a room full of strangers and suddenly be buddies with everybody. That's not how it works.
No, not generally. Yeah.
No, but you don't get a step closer unless you put yourself there.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get a step closer unless you take a step. Well, I mean, I guess whatever. They could step closer.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we both know where we're going with this. Yeah.
Yeah. The point is that I put myself out there. It's the second time I've done this in about a month, and it felt really good to just go out and hang out with people. And even though I don't know everyone there, is to just enjoy the company of others.
Yeah.
Really fun. Reminds me that these are the things that remind me that I am on the right path. I'm not avoiding these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 'Cause as a, like person with anxiety, that sounds like a nightmare to me. So
yeah, exactly.
Unless I've got someone standing there, like if I went with you, not as much, because you're my lifeline, essentially. You're my tether to safety.
Yeah, the wingman.
Yeah. So, but to just go by myself or whatever, I'd be like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, and I'm not going by myself either. Definitely going with the wingman. It's safety in numbers.
Sure. Yeah.
And it does make it more enjoyable. And I want to do more of that. That's why I'm excited about taking the winter off from snowboarding, because to me that ends up being a solitary activity. I'd rather do more communal activities. I'd rather do more stuff with music. I want to do more stuff. I want to make some new friends, and I have opportunities to keep doing things with my family. I want to keep doing that, and bring this back around to gratitude. I just can't. I had somebody that I haven't talked to in a while reach out to me yesterday and said, "How's life?" And I said, "Well, I've had a couple of really, kind of bummer things happened, but life is really good right now."
Yeah.
And
that statement right there is huge for so many people to be able to make. Like if I make that statement, it's a massive statement, because that means I was able to handle things that easily could have put me into a depressive state.
Yep.
But also keep my perspective that, hey, you know what? Even when life is great, things can still suck. Bad things still happen when things are great. Take any sporting event, right? You watch the championship and you're like, wow, what an amazing blah, blah, blah. But there's also a team or a person who is experiencing the absolute opposite of that, to where it's like, wow, this is terrible. But at the end of the day, I play baseball and make millions of dollars. Life is still really good. This moment sucks, but life is still really good. And it's tough to keep that perspective sometimes for, a lot of us. I mean, most of us probably, but at least, I know people with depression definitely would have issues with the perspective there. 'Cause it's easy to fall into, the distorted thinking and catastrophize something or whatever. And it's good that you don't do those kind of things, or at least not with this, you didn't. You're still looking at life with that perspective of, yeah, things are still good. Even with some very difficult things happening, things are still really good.
Yeah. And having an opportunity to, and still come back to what my mother said when I was getting into doing all these stamps and stuff. And she says, it's nice to hear that you're being generous.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that is so, I needed to hear that. Cause it's made me want to be generous.
Yeah.
It's made me want to give where I can, help people where I can. And it feels really good. I mean, it really does.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to sitting down with my nephews and giving them a couple of gift cards from all the stamp sales.
Oh yeah.
And explaining where the money came from.
Mm-hmm.
That this was your grandfather's, they call him Papa, that his hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd want you guys to apply this to your hobbies, because your hobbies are just like his hobby. It's just a little different.
Mm-hmm.
You guys do it on a computer screen, but you're still collecting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're still organizing things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no different.
Yeah.
It's just a different medium.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
So looking forward to that. Yeah. That's and I'm grateful to have these. I'm grateful that as what my sister said, that my father's passing has brought our family closer together. It has brought me closer to my nephews. It has brought me closer to my sister and my mother. That is something I can be grateful for.
Yeah.
And to me, that is what this idea of, it's a tough thing to explain to people, that this concept of everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
It's just not necessarily going to, it's not going to knock on your door and say, "Hi, I'm the reason." It's something for me to find for myself.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you don't, sometimes things just happen, and
that's the point, is things happen. Hurricanes happen and lots of people die.
Yeah. And it's
Earthquakes
terrible.
happen.
Yeah.
Right? We get diseases, people die.
Yeah.
Those things happen. But how I take it and what I learn from it is up to me.
Yeah.
That's my choice. And so I am also grateful that I've been shown that I can find good things happening even in bad situations, and say that, it's not that my dad didn't die for a reason.
Yeah.
But
right.
It wasn't for nothing.
Right.
He lived his life for us, and that lesson is still going forward. And I think that's what he wanted to know.
Right.
That's what he was thinking about. He expressed it to my sister.
Yeah.
That, did he make a difference? Yes, you did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because you did that, it's brought our family closer.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That. Yeah. You're right. And we said that when you were first processing the stuff at your parents' house and stuff too, just the different ways of looking at it. And like I mentioned to you that, even though it's a lot of stuff you guys had to sort through and go through, and it's like, but your dad left you like a museum of his life. I mean, that's kind of cool. It was frustrating. It was a lot of work, but at the same time, it's kind of cool that you got to walk through, the years of his life a little bit like that one more time. Yeah. That's pretty neat, and, we don't all get that. So it's looking for those kind of things. It really helps you move forward, because it really helps you a lot of times, like, instead of just staying in the hurt,
Mm-hmm.
Like if you can find, like if someone dies, but then you find out that their organs were given to someone else to give them life or whatever, it's like, it helps you process that death, because you go, well, there's your reason, I guess, really. That's where the knock is at the door, essentially. But you know what I mean? It's,
well, you don't have to accept it as the reason. I think that's the key to it, is opening. For me, I was happy that someone showed me that I can open myself up to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that rather than seeking resentment or seeking the negative aspects of the situation, I can look for what positive can come from it.
Yeah. Because you're right. There's times where I like when we closed our shop down, I was really upset about it. And, why? Like, why can't, I figure this out, or why this or why that? And then within a matter of months, it was, like, oh, my dad has terminal cancer and he needs is going to need around the clock help. Well, hey, look at that. I'm still living at home and I'm here. Well, knock, knock, knock,
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, I'm the reason, so.
Hey, come on in.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, there it is. That'll certainly do it. And, and it made it easier to process that, at least, it was like, you know what, if I looked back and was like, God, I can't imagine if I still had my shop trying to balance any of that, because I probably still would have tried to have done all I could do. I would have probably been running myself just to exhaustion between the emotional part and then the physical part, so it was like, yeah, I was right where I was supposed to be, and
Yep.
and you're right. It's tough to gain that perspective though, and keep it. It took me a long time to be able to even look at things that way. Right at that moment, I didn't look at it as though, oh, this is the reason we closed. All I did was like, obviously I was like, oh man, my dad's dying. This, so of course I get consumed there. But now I have, the 20/20 hindsight. So, you look back and go, there you go.
And that's the key to it. That's what I like to talk about, that is that everything happens for a reason with 20/20 hindsight.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I wasn't looking for a reason or anything. It just kind of, different times when I talk about it, and it was like, there's nowhere else I would have rather have been. And by saying that, that means I would not have rather have been working, a cash register. I wanted to be right where I was. So, again, looking back, it's like I'm grateful that I was able to do that for him, because I can't think of a better thing to be able to give your parent than the ability to stay home and be in their home and comfortable, because it was the right thing for that scenario. Now, it's not for every scenario, obviously, and it's, just that's what he wanted, and it made me feel good I could help, so, and that was, like you said, it's gratitude, it's, he knows we care in that moment too, and not that anyone who makes different decisions doesn't care, but it was just, it's like we know he appreciates what we're doing and stuff. So that makes that helps a lot, like, again, that adds to the no regrets in the end, where I don't feel there was anything left unsaid. There was no fight between us. There was no distance, emotionally between the two of us or anything. So it was all very like, it sucks he died, but given the circumstances, it went about as well as I could have wanted, So, yeah, it's, it's funny. Like, we talk about gratitude, and when I was in, at the therapist's office, I kept bringing up gratitude. And, because I kept, like, when I was telling her different things, I was telling her about how, like, living where I do, my mom checks on me. Like, those 3 days where I was in bed, she kept coming in. Are you okay? Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I know where it was coming from. She's, there's no hidden agenda there. It's very much are you okay? She's making sure I'm okay, because she was worried. Yeah. And, I know, that I have been incredibly lucky to have the support system I have. I've talked with different people online, and they don't have anywhere near the support system that I've had over the years. And, so I'm super grateful for that. And, it's just it's weird how for years and years, all the thoughts of, I just wish I wasn't here, were constant in my head. And I found myself this year actually having thoughts of, I'm grateful I'm alive. Like, I'm glad. Like, as weird as this may sound, it's like, I'm glad I made it through the things I've made it through, whether it's depression or, loss and whatever, because, it all sculpts you into who you are,
That's it.
And no matter who you are, you're going to experience loss. There's no avoiding it. It's just, it's an unfortunate side effect of life. We all die. So, but I've just been really appreciative of, us doing this podcast, doing the other podcast, the people I've met, all this kind of stuff. It's really, like, when you look at how many blessings have come through deciding to dip our toes into the world of podcasting, it's an amazing thing. We've made friends, met incredible people, traveled, had good times, seen, you and I got to, along with, Tony and Jeannie and Clint and, Teddy, and I can't remember Teddy's lady friend, but I can't remember her name, but I'm sorry. Matthew, and his wife, and just all of us that were there that time, we all got to experience incredible art together, have food experiences together, just all these things that we've experienced and just enriched our lives, So I'm really grateful that this has happened, and all that kind of stuff. So I can't say it enough. It's been, I like the fact that I feel grateful, for life, because it's not always been easy for me to do that. There's been a lot of times where I very easily would have been like, about the whole idea. So, but I really have this last year. I've really tried to, find the silver lining, if you will, to try to be positive, to be the person who is trying to help people keep a little perspective without pulling it could be worse, it's like I'm trying not to do that as much as it's just like, hey, this is where you are. This is still a good, again, like, yeah, you lost the World Series, but you still make millions of dollars to play baseball, like, just hang your hat on that.
I like what you said about, being about with the situation with your dad in the shop, is that you were exactly where you needed to be. And I like phrase that is a very important phrase for me in recovery, was realizing wherever I am is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And the next question is, well, then now what?
Yeah.
Because that's really what it comes down to, which is, it's like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Well, let's look around. Where am I standing? What can I do? Can I be of service to others? Can I add to the stream of life rather than take away from it? And that's that thing like that where you're talking about like the perspective of saying, well, it could be worse. It's not that simple.
Right. Yeah.
That is simple. Granted, yes, it's a one way of doing it.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be. That's why for me, I've stepped away from using sarcasm as a tool.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't serve me in any way, shape, or form of engaging in this world and getting closer to the people around me and the places and the situations. What it does is it pushes people away. It pushes me away because I disconnect myself. That's why I know there's all these things about like, oh, well, people that use sarcasm all the time are blah, 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 intelligent, blah, 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 or live long, whatever. It's like, no, you're a bully. I'm sorry, but you are.
In a lot of ways,
that doesn't mean there's times and places.
Yeah, right.
And I have my friendships where we love to slather it on with each other. But it also tends to be people that I'm already in recovery with and I have amazing moments.
Yeah.
So sarcasm isn't our only language.
Right.
It happens to be a language.
Right. Much like a salty one? No.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. There was something I was going to... Oh, I found it really funny when you said the now what thing, because for years and years, that was literally what I said to everything. But the difference is you are doing it in a state of how can I help? What can I do to be proactive? Whereas the way I was saying it was being defensive, exactly, because it's like, now what? What other horrible thing can happen to me because I was catastrophizing? And, it's just interesting, just the exact same words, how the perspective difference there makes, all the change in the scenario. Because if I, go, okay, well, I'm supposed to be, be like, okay, well, now what?
I just had something pop into my head. I'm sure you have not missed, because that we're approaching the end of a decade.
Yeah.
That there are a lot of photographs being posted of 2019 and 2009.
Yeah.
Well, I say screw that. Who cares what you looked like?
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Yeah.
What's your life like? What are you different now versus 10 years ago in how you react to people, places, and things around you? That's what I want to hear about.
Me too. I'm the same way, because You know, it is interesting though, when people started posting those on different social media things. I went through my camera roll, and I don't so many have pictures of me in 2009. I don't have very many, and there's a good reason for that, and that would be the whole self-loathing thing. I have way more pictures on my phone from the last 3 years or so. You know, selfies or just pictures of me and friends from 3 to 5 years than I do 10 years ago. And like I said, there's a reason for that. You know, I'm in a much, much better mental place than I am, or was, I mean. And I think at least I'm probably more fun to be around now than I was then because, you know, I was, you know, basically Debbie Downer at times. So, but I'm with you. I would much rather hear how you're feeling, how you're doing, you know, those kind of things. Like, how do you feel your life is compared to 10 years ago? Because I've seen a lot of pictures, and it's funny because I see a lot of pictures where, like, people will post and they'll be like, oh, yeah, this was before, you know, this and this happened to my body because of, you know, kids or work or whatever. And it's like, yeah, would you rather not have those kids? Would you rather not have, you know, it's like, and I almost guarantee most of those people would be like, well, no, of course not. And it's like,
yeah.
So like you said, it's like, I'd rather hear that part of it, like the mental thing than like, you know, who cares? I mean, you know, if your body's whatever it is because you had kids, oh, well, I mean, that's, you know, own it. Listen, no, you know, that's part of life. That's fine. I mean, you know, it's, you know, like me, if I look at pictures of me from 10 years ago, yeah, I've still got some hair. I didn't have a beard. I'm basically the same weight. Like, I haven't basically not changed as far as I go. Maybe a little lighter, but I think it's probably about the same. So it's like, all I look at is go, well, I lost a bunch of hair and I found it on my face, I guess. So, you know, it's like, you know, and you can tell looking at my face that I'm older than I was then, but it's, you know, it's like, okay. I'm also not one that, like, I don't care how old I am, you know. As far as
I really don't care.
You know,
I just
like,
don't.
I don't, you know, because really, what's it matter? It's like people, I'm afraid of growing old. It's like, yeah, but if you drop dead at 45, what's old? In your lifespan, 45 was old because that's the end. You know, somebody else may live to, you know, like my grandma's 101. So, you know, it's like I said, what's old? You never know. You know. I had a friend die at 21 or 22. You know, why worry about your age? You know, like I said earlier.
How can I? I really feel like I can't. And I should clarify. I do care how I look.
Yeah,
it is part of who I am.
Well, sure. I mean,
there's a reason I go to the gym.
Yeah,
and it's not just for health because I like the way I look.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you like taking selfies at the gym. That's why you go to the gym.
That too, yeah. in my favorite podcast T-shirt. You know,
yes, of course.
I could post it up and
right,
and get some more vanity and like, hey, look how cool I am. I'm sporting your T-shirt there.
Right, exactly.
That's the truth. But the real, when I look back at 10 years ago and who I was, and I was recently sober, yet I was trying at that time, you know who I was at that time? I was someone that was full of a lot of talk and not a lot of walk.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because, and I was doing the best I could, but I was still trying to shove a square peg into a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
I had not become honest with myself. And as a result, there was a lot of what I talked about that really, it had a place, it had a purpose, but it wasn't really anchored in me. I wasn't living my life based on these principles that I was sharing.
Yeah.
And after it took another year or so before I finally realized it, and I had to get honest, and I had to walk in, and I had to own up to it, and I had to own it, and I did, and it felt great. It felt great to walk in and say, you know what, I have been full of it.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because that's essentially what happened with me when I finally went into therapy. You know, like I said, the whole time before, I was like, nah, I'm smart enough. I can work. I can, whatever. And then even when I was like, I read all sorts of stuff of techniques and depression and anxiety and all this stuff. And you know, so when I go in to therapy and stuff, but again, you know, hearing you talk about your experience, how you walked in with like, well, it's going to go this way, and it didn't. And, you know, and that resistance held you back for a while. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And I didn't. And I'm glad I learned from that, you know. And so walking in with that mindset, I was able to actually just walk in and basically be like, bleh, you know, here's all the things. And then I was at that place where it was time for me to start hearing this is, you know, this is not logical. Like, here's how to help. You know, these are different things. You're not alone, broken, all these other things, you know. It's like you just need a reset, basically, you know, and then you'll be, you know, you can work on the rest. But before that, I wasn't ready to hear it. And there were things that I went into therapy and I came home and I would tell Jen, you know, or somebody else, and they'll be like, yeah, I told you that, you know. And,
that's so true.
Like, you did, you know, because I wasn't in a place, I wasn't ready to hear it.
You weren't ready to hear it, and that's okay.
Yep.
That's why you were exactly where you needed to be.
Yeah.
At that moment, you weren't ready.
Yep.
You weren't ready to hear it, and that's okay. That's why one of the hardest things I hear about in sobriety is people. Yeah, they don't. It's not so much about lamenting it. It's more like they see someone that got their you know, their poop in a group at a young age. It's like, oh, I wish I'd you know, clued in and stuff like that. No, it doesn't matter. It takes what it takes, and we get it when we get it.
Yeah.
And like, I like to share this a lot when I see people desperate for a relationship.
Yeah.
Desperate to find their soulmate or true love or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I say, you know, if you find that in 5 years, you'll be happy. If you find it in 10 years, you'll be happy.
Yeah.
If you find it in 15 years, you'll be happy. And it'll be such a miracle at that moment that you won't care how long it took.
Right.
So quit worrying about it.
Yeah.
Because when you do find it, you'll be happy.
Yeah.
And the amount of time that it took to get here will be gone. It won't matter.
Yeah.
It won't even, all you'll be into is this moment.
Yep. Yeah. This moment, that person. Yeah.
Yeah.
That relationship.
So,
yeah.
Don't worry about today. Don't be desperate. People read it. It's like a giant banner on your forehead. Desperate.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. You know, there's so many people out there that, you know, when they read that banner, they rub their hands together. You know, because
that too.
That's somebody I can manipulate.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a
People
whole
like
different
that.
episode.
Ooh, that's a
yeah. So that's definitely not the vibe I'm sure most of us want to give off. Yeah. Right.
But it's such a cliche, but it's true. It's like when you stop looking, it finds you.
Yeah. It does so many times, you know, and it's, you know, not just with like that kind of thing. I've heard people, you know, like looking for jobs and blah, they finally hit a point they're like, I'm done, you know, whatever, and then just, I don't know, they trip into a new job.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's and the same thing comes with recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Is when you finally find that moment. If you really find it, it won't matter how long it took.
Yeah. Well, you're right.
You'll just be happy it's there.
You're right, because I, you know, like think about the different times where I've come on here after therapy and I'll be like, man, I had such an aha moment and blah, blah. And I'm all blah, blah. And I'm not just like, I'm not worried that it took me.
Oh, you're not going, why didn't I find this 5 years ago?
Yeah.
I wasted my life.
Yeah.
No, you're going, I had this aha moment today.
Now, don't get me wrong. There has been plenty of man, I wish I had figured that out sooner, but, you know, whatever.
There's a lot of stuff I've wished.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like, you know, former employer of mine used to say, you know, fill one hand up with wish and the other with feces, we'll say, and see which one fills up first, you know, and it's, you know,
that's funny.
So, yeah, it's, but, you know, of course, I assume I can speak for both of us and Jen and say, we're grateful for anyone who's listened and anyone who's gained anything along the way or reached out to us, hopefully, even if you haven't reached out, maybe you found something useful or it's helped you or somebody else along the way, because that's the reason why we bother to put this up every week, is in the hopes that maybe we can help somebody get to their moment of readiness, whatever you want to call it, sooner than we did,
or the willingness. I look at this
the willingness. That's more of what I was looking for. Yeah, thank you. Because it certainly took me some time,
Yeah, because sometimes that's all I pray for.
Yeah,
it's just a willingness.
Yeah, and I try,
yeah.
ever since kind of waking up to that, once you hit that moment, it's kind of things look differently to you when you start opening yourself up that way. Like you go into that party kind of a thing or whatever, the willingness to put yourself out there, because for a lot of people that would, like I said, that would be a nightmare for a lot of people, so, I can't remember what it was. You shared it on Facebook today or yesterday. I can't remember what it is. It was something about,
it was that billboard. It's like, don't be afraid to find something else to suck at. Or something like that. It was something like.
But that billboard is really like, I'm trying to get there. That's kind of like where I'm at right now. Is I'm trying to get to that point that I'm willing to put myself out for different things a little bit more and whatever. So. Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times, and it makes me laugh every time.
Me too. And I go, that sums it up for me. Don't be afraid to suck at something else, something new, or whatever it is. It's like
right, because you're going to. Yeah, like
exactly.
I told you before we did this, I would talk with someone in a podcast group, and that's what I told them when they start podcasting, I was like, you're gonna suck. Like it's gonna take you a little time to really get in a groove, find your voice, all these kind of things, and you just. At some point, you have to just do it, and just go, I'm going to be terrible, but that's okay. We were all terrible at walking when we started. I mean, or most of us. Maybe there's some savants out there that, strutted from minute one, but, most of us probably fell over after waddling weirdly 2 or 3 times like we were drunk, You
came out just in full pimp walk. Come on, man.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you for everyone for listening, and it's weird to say that we do this for selfish reasons.
Oh, totally.
We do this so that we can recover. However, it is still just like putting your oxygen mask on yourself first and then putting it on your children or whatever. It's like you can't be useful to somebody else if your own house isn't in order. And it's okay. Recovery is the selfish thing. It has to be.
No, I'm laughing because we unintendedly came full circle, because we kind of started the show talking about having our house in order in a different way. And then you come back to it. What's really funny is
good night.
What's really funny is when I go back to the point where I'm like, I don't care about that.
That's right. Who cares about? I don't care what other people think about my house.
Yeah. Meanwhile, let me talk for an hour about how I do.
That's good.
I think that's a good spot to stop it.
Yeah.
All right. As Jen usually says, if you'd like to continue the conversation, you can. Wow, it'd probably help if I pull these things up so I know what I'm going to say here, wouldn't it? You can go to our website, which is a site that I'm going to tell you in a minute. I completely forgot it. I believe it's the crazylifepodcast.weebly.com. But why is this not coming up?
It has all our old episodes.
There we go. Yeah, the crazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can email us if you'd like to at the crazylifepodcast@outlook.com. You can find the show on Twitter at the Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find Jen on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G, or at Whiskey Dits, I believe is her other one. And you can also check her out on her other podcast, which is called Shake the Sheets, which is a pop culture conversation podcast, and you can find that at shakethesheets.com. How about you, sir?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno or search for L Hummingbird. Find me on Facebook, Henno Heiter, and Facebook Messenger. I'm also on Instagram and all those other things, throwing stuff up there. And you can check out my other podcast, Moving the Needle Podcast, where we talked about my pet film, the hockey movie Goon. And that got released today. So if you're a fan of that movie, give us a listen.
Or if you aren't. Because, like, when you guys did the, what was that movie? The Zohan movie.
Yeah.
I walked into it going, I cannot wait to hear someone defend this. So, be a good listen either way. And, also, let them know what you think of the episode if you agree/disagree,
Yep. I think we got a poll on Twitter right now. If you go to MPN Pod,
even better.
We have it's a poll about how do you grade the movie Goon. I think it'll be up for another day.
Nice.
Yep.
You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can find my other podcast, Salty Language, at salty_language on Twitter or at saltylanguage.com. That show is definitely not safe for work, so be careful when you're listening to it. Make sure you keep the children's away and probably don't listen to it at work unless you have the old earbuds, AirPods, whatever the cool term is now that the kids are using.
The cool kids say.
Yeah. Also, if you follow Henno on Facebook, try to check out his video where he has the interview with the band.
Thanks.
Because that was a good watch. Also, real quick, I forgot to mention this to you earlier. I want to say this too. It was really interesting seeing the commercial for Tom right after the interview.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, this is weird. Because in the thing, y'all are in your space, you got your instruments, and then you perform. Yep. And then, and then it's like him, like, I do all of these medical things. It was so weird that they put that immediately after, to me. Not in a bad way. It was just like, whoa, because he, like, okay, I get to see the other side of this guy now.
Yeah. And that was kind of the point.
Yeah, right. It worked. It was, cool. I mean, seems like nice guy either way, whatever. So I forgot where I was at. Oh, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. We are part of the Danger Entertainment Network, which can be found at dangerentertainment.net. And we're also part of the Tangentbound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows on those networks. And, I think that's pretty much it, right? Yep, that's all there. All right, well, as usual at this point, I say, make sure you, if you need help, please reach out. And again, I always want to point out, therapy isn't just for people with mental illness. Same with some support groups and stuff like that out there. If you have something that's kind of causing you strife, stress, whatever in your life, it can be helpful because sometimes a good reframe is what you need, and that's what both of those can provide for you. So, keep that in mind, especially as the holiday season comes up and stuff too. It can be very stressful for people. If you don't have a therapy session booked and the holidays cause you a lot of stress, maybe see if you can squeeze a last tune-up or whatever in there, kind of like I did, to maybe help out. Or again, if meetings are more your groove, then go check, I'm sure in your area there's probably some sort of support for whatever it is that you need. Or if not, there's online support groups and all that kind of stuff. So
lots of telephone and internet web-based support.
All sorts of people out there willing to help you. You just need to reach out to them. Last week, I believe it was, when we talked about loss and coping and stuff, I had the links for the suicide prevention lifeline, the crisis text line, and the text number in there. I'm going to leave those in there. I originally just meant it for the week, but I've decided I'm just going to leave it in there. So at any time, if you need it, they're in the show notes. Or, they're easy enough to find on the internet, but, just let everyone know they're in the show notes if you ever need them. And then, of course, try to reach out to people, that you haven't talked with in a while, and, maybe just see how they're doing, let them know you care. And, it's funny, every week I end the show by saying how, to be kind when you can, and, especially, also to be kind to yourself. I forgot earlier, I was going to mention this. I actually completely lost my cool in the grocery store last week, or in between last show and this show, because I was in there and there was a guy in there with his mom, and he was just unleashing on her, like just yelling at her and just profanity laced, because he wanted her to go to this one checkout. She went to another one, and he was probably frustrated anyway, but I didn't care, because I was like, hey, and I just went off on him about how disrespectful it was and how she didn't deserve that, no matter what she did or didn't do. And he, of course, did not agree with me. And a guy behind me also voiced that the guy should stop being a jerk to his mom. And and then an employee came over, and everything was fine. But I'm not going to lie, for a minute there, the guy kind of started taking a step toward me, and I thought, wow, well, I guess I might be in my first fight as an adult.
Wow.
And honestly, I didn't care, because he was being so rude to her. And I even told the one employee, I said, I'm kind of afraid for her safety leaving here with him, because, I don't know this guy. I don't know if he's violent in any way. He's already yelling and screaming, and just whatever. But anyway, the way I looked at it at first, because I was like, oh boy, talk about, just snapping and losing my cool. And I was like, you know what though? I did, but I was being kind to her, even if I wasn't to him. And honestly, I can sleep okay at night with that.
Nice.
I try really hard not to lose my temper anymore, but I was not raised that way. You don't do that to nobody deserves that riot act in public, especially. Don't, if you're going to dress someone down, don't do it like that. You shouldn't do it at all, but whatever. I can't judge and yell at you in your own home, because I won't be there. So
you'll be silently judging them from across the street.
Totally looking through the window, just, glaring
creepy
at them.
all.
Yeah. That's so-and-so. But again, when you can, be kind. And, don't be afraid to react to somebody like that. Because the reason that guy's going to get away with that generally is because nobody'd say anything to him.
Nobody reacts. Yeah, you're right.
Let's not be those people. Let's, don't be like, Peter Parker and let the robber run by and then be responsible for your uncle's death.
Oh, heavy.
I'm kidding. That's the guilt he puts on himself. It's, that's what leads him to be Spider-Man and stuff.
Whew, it took a turn.
Yeah. Sorry. The 2009 Brian crept back in. All right. Like I said, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Hopefully everyone has a nice Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. And, I read a little bit ago that they said the average person consumes it's like 35 or 4,500 calories on Thanksgiving Day. Oh, boy. Remember the be kind to yourself part. So either try not to beat yourself up that way, or if you do, don't beat yourself up because you ate through 2.5 days worth of calories or something. And I guess with that, Henno, you want to take us out of here?
Yeah, live your omelet and don't worry about yesterday's pizza.